please rise. Pledge of Allegiance, silent invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilmember Ford.
Present.
Councilmember Tremont.
Here.
Councilmember Stillman.
Here.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Here.
Mayor Burnett.
I am here. Public comments on consent agenda, items 6 through 11. If there are any public comments to be made on items 6 through 11? There being none, may I have a motion to approve the agenda for the evening?
Motion for agenda approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval for tonight's agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed? We have an agenda. With that, may I have a motion for approval on the items on the consent agenda?
Motion approved consent agenda items 6 through 11.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a proper second. Items 6 through 11 on the consent agenda. Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stillman.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. That brings us to, well, that seemed awfully fast, but that's great. That brings us to citizen participation. David, I'm sorry, I didn't ask you how to say your last name. David Glazier? Come on up. I want you all to come up. Just tell us who you are and tell us what's on your mind.
I'm David Glazier.
Michelle Austin, his wife,
Chris Lipan.
our neighbor,
And Yolanda Pagano.
our neighbor. We live at South Oaks Townhouses. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, we live at 3656 Jackson Street, which is just on the north side of Herbert Street, right across from the porthole. Our complaint is that the porthole, on a continuous and constant basis, is violating what I believe to be the Port Orange noise ordinances. On a consistent basis, the doors are open, bands are blaring, drums are drumming. We have many motorcycles revving their engines at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Their stereos are on. People are just, it's a non-smoking environment, I believe. So you have many people outside, they're sitting, they're talking, sometimes they're fighting, they're yelling, the stereos are blaring, and the noise is just not conducive for a residential area. We have elderly, we have young people in our community, and it is a residential area. And we have tried many different avenues to address the problem. We have called on a nightly basis the police. Yolanda one night called 4 times. We have gone to the police station and talked to an officer and filed a written complaint. And the summer approaching, bike week approaching, is not a very positive look for us. We do not mind people running a business. We do not condemn having a ban. But on the constant, consistent basis that it continues, it is disrupting our lives. It disrupts our sleep. We have elderly, like I said, we have small children, and it's just a nuance. And we're asking that the council do something about it and to abide by the ordinance. And go ahead.
I just want to say I've been keeping records, some of the documentation. When we call the police, it's always after hours, of course, so we can't get in touch with the Port Orange Police, so we get a county central dispatch, and they say they'll come if they can get there. So, for example, I called at 11:37 on a Friday night. Nobody came. At 1:10, the music was still blaring, just so I could hear it inside my house with the doors closed. And we called again, and nobody came. So and I know they say they can come if they're not busy doing something, if somebody isn't being stabbed somewhere else. But no matter how many times we call, nobody actually comes and does anything about it. And I've documented the motorcycles revving outside of this place. I know the decibel ordinance,
How much longer do you need?
just say 1 minute.
Counsel?
Yes.
I
Any
know we-
objections? No objections? Go ahead.
I know we have an ordinance, weeknights 10 PM and Friday and Saturday night 10:30 PM. I've got documentation 11:50, 11:56, 12 AM, 12:28, 12:30, 12:39 on the same night. Motorcycles coming out of this place, revving for a minute or 2 minutes at a time. And, you know, people are sleeping. And like my husband said, the doors are open, people are sitting out in the parking lot yelling, screaming, swearing, fighting, and we just cannot get any rest and can't get any sleep. So when we bought our unit, there was nothing across the street, it was vacant. So had this been here, we would not have bought this unit.
The combination of the doors open with the band, the loud rock band, and I like loud rock bands at times, I'm not prude, but with the band blaring, the motorcycles revving, the people yelling and screaming outside, the combination is just really
Sure.
bad.
Just unbearable.
So we're asking council to at least, to look at it and help us to at least make the residential area livable for us.
Enforce the noise ordinance, if nothing else. 10 PM, 10:30, it's done, and somebody's there making sure it's done or something, because we just can't sleep.
And
Okay.
the last thing I would say is that when we moved in, we heard when it was opening that the porthole was going to be a restaurant,
Like a
not a
supper
biker bar that it used to be.
Right.
I think that's how they started. See where we are now.
Okay.
So,
Quickly. Hold on. Go ahead.
I have
Last
one
point.
thing. I get up in the middle of the night. I'm trying to get over a kidney transplant. And you can imagine I have all kinds of complications. So I get up in the middle of the night and I go actually look out there. I've seen people drunk get on motorcycles and drive away. I mean, I'm talking about a really serious business here, in cars. So I call the police, I tell them, I went down to the police department, and I'm wondering, these people can run over people, they could kill people, I mean, this is a liability out there, and it's a liability for the city as well, because the liquor, killing, and me calling and you know, and just putting it on notice, these people are just drunk as hell out there, and we can't get any rest, I mean, really.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to say that Jake and I had a conversation just last week about this and others, and that we'll ask, the city manager is going to discuss it with the police chief, see what we can do to help you out.
so actually, we're gonna do better than that. We've already started to take action, and the chief of police will talk to you in the lobby on his way out.
Oh,
He's
okay.
waiting for you right there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is, you all live out in Springwood?
In South Oaks.
South Oaks.
Right?
South Oak, got it.
Immediately north.
I got it, yep,
Yeah.
yep,
Even
I'm
closer.
familiar. Got it, thanks.
Oh, thank you
Okay,
so
thank
much.
you.
See, I talked to
Thank you.
Springwood and they
Thank
can hear
you.
it there.
Robin, did I have any others? Okay. Okay.
There you go.
That wasn't another one, was it?
No, that was the one, the
Alright.
one you passed me.
I don't have any others. Council comments? Marilyn?
Oh, okay, I do have some. They were with two things on the consent agenda, but in the interest of time, I thought I could just indicate my comments. I already have talked with the manager. Number 8, on the consent agenda, Resolution 25, talked about some corrections to the budget. And my comment is, it would be helpful if we separate procedural or correction or clerical corrections from substantive. Because the one about Parks and Rec, which was using capital funds for playground on Airport Road, we actually had approved that back in November, but for the fact that the little financial document didn't go with it, It showed up on the agenda today. So I think that's sort of a procedural or clerical correction. We need to do it, but it's not a substantive issue. And then on the substantive side, there was some about the police. And just so everybody knows, because I asked this question, the Law Enforcement Public Safety Training Facility, AKA the gun range. That's what I thought it was, but sometimes in our agendas we're not as clear as we could be. And I'm not sure where the item on sponsorship belonged. We got some revenue for that, but that showed up under budget corrections. And so I'm just suggesting it may help our understanding. It certainly would help mine as well as citizens.
We'll start to add like a staff report to the financials, so you know where the money's coming from, where it's going to, and why. The revenue, like the sponsorship revenue, it's got to go somewhere. So, but it's more administrative. But we need to let you know when it comes in and where it's going. So we'll provide that.
Okay, and then number 10, special events, and it applies to 11 and 12 too. I just thought the public would like to know when police time is required for an event, the vendor or the restaurant pays for the police, but what you should know is we charge them the actual rate that police cost us. So all that is to say, on the good side, I think the businesses know we're not gouging them for something that is really a function that we think is for the good of the city, because it promotes businesses and it serves our citizens and other who may go. And then on the other side of that, if they use city equipment such as lights or barricades, when you look at those costs, the city is smart enough to not just do the actual cost of the piece of equipment. They include, if you will, what it's going to take to depreciate that over time, or a replacement value. So in that part of the equation, the city, I think, is being very fair and responsible with our tax dollars, because it's making sure that the wear and tear on a city piece of equipment that's used for an event is being reimbursed. So I learned that, I asked those questions, and I thought it would be good for the residents to know that I think the city is really approaching things very responsible, to the benefit of the businesses, but also to the benefit of the taxpayers. So that's all I had to say.
All right. Chase, what do you got tonight?
No comments, Mayor.
Drew?
I'm going to defer to Councilman Stiltner so that he can read what we need to read in.
That's kind of why I wanted to save him for last, because of the magnitude and the gravity of what you're
Yep.
about to do. Scott?
Thank you, Mayor. So Port Orange recently lost what I would describe as probably one of its most iconic residents in the last decade. Carla Braga lost her battle with cancer just about 10 days ago. Although I would tell you, if for those that knew Carla, you would never use the word lost anything, because what a winner. So I had asked for a bio on Carla that I wanted to read into the permanent record. And I know everybody up on the dais knew Carla. There's a ton of friends and family all over the Port Orange area that are still grieving her loss, but look forward to an opportunity to celebrate her life. So if you'll bear with me, I wanted to read something.
Take a drink of water first.
Yeah, right. Carla was born October 16th, 1969, raised in Niterói, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Her dad was a lawyer and her mom a school teacher. After moving to the United States in 2003, she finally settled in the Port Orange community in 2006, where she grew deep roots within the community. She was a big sister, a mother of two, a grandmother of two, an aunt, and the proud caretaker of 2 dogs and 5 chickens.
5 chickens. Gotta love
That's
it.
probably how Drew was a fan of hers.
Gotta love it.
She was a loving wife and a best friend, the best friend you could possibly ever dream to have. Carla grew her own food. She wasn't afraid of getting her hands dirty, and she did it with pride. Zumba was her true passion, as well as spreading love, happiness, and health through dance. From kids to adults, even seniors. She wanted to reach them all, and she did. She never stopped fighting. She made sacrifices, and she stood by them. When someone passes away, we always say that now they're in a better place. Well, in this case, things are a little different. She has left us in a better world, enhanced by her existence. Through the people she has touched, the love that she has spread, and the happiness she ultimately caused simply by being in the room, we are all better for it. Carla Cristina Lubanco Braga, gone February 8th, 2020. Way too soon. You will be forever missed. In our community alone, Carla was very instrumental in Relay for Life events. She provided free Zumba classes to the red, white, and blue team. She was an avid supporter of Me Strong, Party in Pink, and the Volusia County School ESOL department fundraisers, as well as school backpack drives. She also was a strong supporter of the annual Superhero fundraiser for kids fighting cancer, organized and taught self-defense courses for women in the community, utilizing her jiu-jitsu fighting skills. Just from a personal comment, I want to say that the first time I met Carla, probably about 5 years ago, there was a Relay for Life event that was being held out at the pavilion. And it was pouring rain. It had rained all day, all night. You would think, first of all, I was shocked. I kept making calls to people. I was like, they're going to cancel this. They're going to postpone it. And they're like, no, we're not. And I'm like, man, people are going to be, Relay for Life is going to be a swimming event this year. So we go out to the event, my wife and I and my daughter, and we're walking around the event, and we're trying to, you're stepping from one overhang to the next. Everybody's trying to be dry. Nobody's dry. And up on the stage is this woman doing Zumba, and it is pouring rain. And I'm not talking about drizzling. It is coming down. And it was Carla. And she was smiling, and she was full of life, and no rain, no weather, nothing was going to stop that. By the way, it wasn't all that warm, so there was a cold element to it. That was my first memory of Carla. I met Carla that day, and then it seemed like clockwork that no matter what event you went to, whether it was Family Days or Spring Fest or another Relay for Life or any events going on, 5Ks, she was there. She was always there. She had on her purple, had on her sunflower stuff. Usually her hair had a color to it. She had a very vibrant streak to her. And the one thing that I hope everybody remembers from Carla, and I know this is a little bit cliche, but they say that we're all gonna die sooner or later, right? But are we all gonna live? Carla lived. She was diagnosed in 2014. She fought breast cancer twice, but she kept living every single day, and not only fighting for herself, but fighting for everybody in this community battling something like that. Whether it was senior citizens, whether it was kids, people she knew, people she didn't know. It just didn't matter to her. She was in the fight. And I can't say in this forum some of the words she would use for being in the fight, because those could be a little
Her
cuff words.
grandchildren
But
are here.
man, I mean, just a vicious fighter and somebody with incredible passion, and she will definitely be missed. There is a really cool celebration of life that's being planned for Carla. And if I could ask Lori, if you don't mind, I hate to put you on the spot, but if you could just come up for just a second and remind everybody the date, because this will be televised, and I know folks are going to want to know when it's going to be. And
Right up.
yeah, just come on up here and introduce yourself. So Lori is one of Carla's dearest friends and an advocate of everything Carla stands for as well. And she's been a great person to communicate with, so thank you for that, because I know it's not an easy thing for you either. And so if you could just tell everybody a little bit about what's going to be happening to celebrate Carla's life, and if anybody is interested, how they can to help with that.
Pardon my voice, I'm losing it, but her celebration of life will be on March 1st at the amphitheater. It's not going to rain, and
We don't care if it does.
it's going to be a combination of just people gathering and hanging out Carla style, which is backyard barbecue, friends, and just happiness. They're also going to be having Zumba, different instructors coming, from different areas. There's people coming from Brazil. There's people coming from all over the United States to come in. So I have several hours of that, and then of course we're gonna eat food, and the time is from 1 to 6 on March 1st. It's a
1
Sunday.
to 6.
And all are welcome to celebrate this beautiful soul. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere.
Hey, Linda?
Hang on one second, Lori.
Stay up there for a minute, please. Did you want to share too? I know there are costs associated with this, and you're trying to do some fundraising, and is there a way,
There
where
is a
people
co-
can help?
There is a cost associated, roughly around $1,200 for the amphitheater and the itemized other items that we would need. For example, electrical pedestals, trash can, that kind
Sure.
of thing. So yeah, we'll take any donation.
How do we-
How can they do that?
How do we donate?
I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
She has on her page, which is on Facebook, Team Carla, and on that page there's a GoFundMe account or there's a PayPal account that will go directly to her family, and those funds from today forward will be used for her celebration of life, providing the facility, food, whatever is needed.
And they can search that by just putting Team Carla.
Just search
in the
Team
search
Carla
box.
on Facebook.
Excellent.
And at the top of her page, there'll be actually I just posted today, so in the post today, you'll see a PayPal link and a GoFundMe. If not, it's at the very top of her page in the pinned post, which has that same information. And you'll be hearing from me a lot on there, so it won't be missed.
And the page is Team Carla, correct?
Team Carla,
Team
yes.
Carla. All right. I'd like to help out right here, right now. So rather than do GoFundMe, I'll make a personal donation to the cause. You're welcome.
Hey, can I ask a quick question? Just to be clear, is the organizer Crystal Fedele, Fedele? Is that?
Her and I, of the GoFundMe, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yes.
Good, because her name is very clear on there, and I
Yes.
just want to make sure that's the right one.
That's the correct account.
Thanks. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lori, thank you for coming tonight, providing that information. So, Mayor, I just want to say also that, we have a lot of people in the community that do a tremendous amount, and they give back, and they do a lot of special things, but Carla will definitely be missed as probably one of the most vibrant people
Yeah.
that you could pick out of a crowd in the blink of an eye, and so she will be definitely missed. And lastly, all I wanted to say is I think it's once a year the council gets an opportunity to nominate residents and citizens to be remembered and memorialized on a special wall, and I'm not sure when that is. I was trying to reach out to Cindy. She's going to get back with me on that, but we do that.
I got a feeling I know who your nominee is
So
going to be.
but I'll have a nomination for that, and it'll rhyme with Carla Braga when that time comes.
Okay.
So I look forward to that, and hope to see everybody at the Celebration of Life. I'll definitely be there for it.
Do me a favor, whether you know her or not, she's the type of person you'd want to call a friend. With that in mind, I'd like to observe a moment of silence in her memory. Thank you. And actually, I think I needed that so I could compose myself to move on. Thanks, Scott. I appreciate you doing that. Well, it kind of makes my list of things right here a little bit less meaningful, but Jake, I know Finance has been working with our auditor to get the CAFR done. How's that coming?
It's moving right along. We should be wrapping up in March, beginning of March. I asked Scott today, I said, hey, have you heard anything, any whispers? We haven't heard a thing. That usually means everything's going quite well, or so poorly they're scared to call. But and I think we're tracking on time for that.
And street lights on Dunlawton, the project between Ridgewood and Spruce Creek Road. How we doing? Are we still on track for getting this done with this spring?
Late spring, yes. Some of the areas needed special poles and luminaires. Those are on back order, but we had reported that earlier. That hasn't changed at all. The contractor on the city's dime, has removed all the old walking lights or in the process of it. Some of them have already been removed, and we're looking at what we're going to do with those, resell them or whatever we need to do, but they're being removed. So the next step will be, you'll see the new poles go up and the new LED lights go in here as soon as they come in, but they are in back order.
Okay. And last week, I think it was, the Volusia County Echo Grant Committee evaluated all the grant applications from the entities in the county, and we had...
We did not get first place.
We did not get first place. Our project, we had 2 projects that finished second and third in the total tabulation. I thought that was fabulous.
Well, that was the good news. The bad news is the Holly Hill Pickleball Court beat us out. The good news is we got funded for the next phase of our community center and a bunch of money for some playground equipment to replace the playground at Airport Park. Susan, yeah, well, Allison's giving me that high five. So yeah, and as always, I'd like to thank Allison, the finance committee or the finance group, and Amanda, as well as Parks and Rec, for working hard to make sure that we got that money. So we'll keep going to the well till they say no.
And when do we think we're going to be breaking ground on the rec center renovations? Do we have a timetable for that yet?
No, I know it's going to be this year, sometime late summer, early fall, but I don't have a date.
Something to look forward to. With that, I was going to use the word gun range. I guess I should use the word police training range.
Right.
I would like at some point in time for all of us can't go out there at once, obviously, but I'd like to be able to see it, and I think all of us would probably like the opportunity to have a tour out there at some point. So
As soon as we, FP&L hasn't pulled power out there. As soon as we get power out there, and it gets it gets safe and we can be complete, there's a few, I think we said a few week period where we're going to let things settle, let the grass grow, things of that nature. So during that period, we'll bring you out there and you guys can take a look and see the result of that hard work.
And then that takes care of most of my odds and ends. I had one, I guess you could call it a little bit more hard hitting.
Sure.
I've watched our ups and downs in struggling with panhandling. And it seemed like we had a nice ebb until recently, and now I know that what I've seen and what I'm getting calls on, the panhandlers in front of Publix, panhandlers in front of the pavilion, panhandlers on Williamson in the middle of the road.
Wawa yesterday for me.
It just seems like that that ebb and flow is becoming a bit more of a flow again. And Jake, I would like to request that you put a discussion on an agenda as soon as possible in the future to have Port Orange discuss the implications of implementing a panhandling ordinance similar to what Daytona and St. Augustine has done. I do realize that there are pluses and minuses every time you do something like that, and right now they may be subject to a challenge, but that challenge hasn't happened. And instead of waiting for a challenge to defeat something, maybe somebody else's to dissuade us from doing it, maybe it's time for us to talk about how we can get on board and help that challenge be upheld and do something for our city at the same time. So I would request that you put that on the agenda, and of course, Matt, that's going to come with an accompanying request that you're going to have to brief each and every one of us individually in advance of that, so that we're prepared to have a vibrant discussion. We can't just walk in without the information that you have in regards to court cases, the pluses and minuses and the like. I want it to have a very vibrant discussion so that we can come out of that with some resolution as far as what our direction should be. I think that we've been in sit and wait mode and enforce bad behavior mode as best we can for a while, and quite frankly, we're not making progress, and I think it's time to have the conversation.
Okay. I have no problem with that. I think probably mid-March will be the best opportunity for Matt to get ducks in a row, staff to get their ducks in a row. I do want to, make sure everybody's aware that panhandlers on private property in front of the pavilion or in front of Publix, that's private property. If Publix wants them there or isn't opposed or doesn't know they can trespass them, then this panhandling ordinance isn't going to prevent people from panhandling on private property when they are not asked to leave. It's when they come into the private or into the public domain that would take effect. So keeping that
Collectively speaking.
keep that in mind. Keeping that in mind, I think March 18th will be the best opportunity for us, unless you want to workshop it, but it doesn't sound like you do. You want to have the discussion in.
I want to have a discussion.
Yep. So we'll bring it on the 18th.
Okay.
What's that?
March 17th.
We won't argue. I'll let Robin say, we'll do it on the 17th.
The third Tuesday in March.
Hey, 17th, 18th, whatever it takes.
Still want everybody showing up on the 18th?
That's right. Or maybe we do.
Well, then show up on the 18th to watch the replay from the night before.
But for the record, everybody, March 17th. Thank you for straightening me out.
Make sure you wear your green. Item 13, Parks and Rec Advisory Report. Here's a Bobby Ball sighting.
Good evening, Bobby Ball, the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. You're seeing me tonight because Mark wasn't at the meeting, but the group elected him the chair. So,
Of course they did.
And I was elected the vice chair. So here I am. I'll be brief tonight. We had a brief discussion on the Russell property, and I believe we're working on trying to get an RFP out to see what kind of uses people might want to use for that. In the meantime, I think we've got a partnership with the Boy Scout group to use it for camping for a night or two or whatever that process is.
That's correct.
So an update on the foundation. I understand Jack Wiles was going to give it a run, and he did, and was unsuccessful. So that would be probably the fifth or sixth person to give it a shot. So at this point, we have officially going to decide what to do and actually not do it, and attempt to return the monies that were donated, or see if they were willing to put it back into our scholarship program for the Parks and Rec. So
That would be a good use.
yeah, so we're
How
gonna
much money is it?
$1,700. I think everybody it was a handful, a dozen people.
Got it.
So we discussed park partners, and if you recall, it was probably 6 or 8 months ago we changed some of our ideas and policies on how we have partners and trying to implement, and enforce the rules that we have in place. And so we've lost a couple, and we're gonna wait until a full year goes by, and then we'll reevaluate where we're at before we do any kind of fee increases, which was part of our previous discussion, was an incremental fee increase recommendation. So at this point, we're going to take a wait and see approach. And then we talked a little bit about moving forward. I think we're going to have a special meeting and a workshop with you over the next 2 months.
That sounds right.
March 31st.
Okay. The main goal of that is obviously to get your priorities, but also for you to hear our priorities. And one of those in particular is more of a big picture for us is parks are a very important part of Port Orange, and that's what makes us special. And I know budget season's coming up, albeit it seems far away, but it's already starting. And we want to make sure that Parks and Rec of the city in general are at the forefront of your mind. So we want to, sometimes we tend to talk to you, and then sometimes that gets whittled away and forgotten a little bit at the end. You're going to see my face again and again and again to remind you.
So this is a hold on to your wallet, here comes Bobby.
I'm going to keep reminding you that the reason why I'm here is because 33 years ago I moved here, and that's the reason why I'm still here.
Nice.
And with that, you mentioned the Echo already with where we were at on a couple of those projects, and that's all I have to report.
Any questions for Bob?
No, but I do want to remind Mr. Ball that the reason he is here is because Mrs. Ball has said he will be here.
Fair,
And he
fair
will
point.
participate in as many community organizations that we could put him on, because she would rather him be out here doing this. So.
Fair point.
So we said thanks.
Fair point.
No,
Thank
thanks
Kim
Bobby.
for us. And
We'll do it.
thank you, and thank Kim for us as well.
Thank you.
Final ERP project update. Okay.
This is gonna be fairly quick.
And this is kind of somber. This is the last time you get to do this for us.
Well, I'm gonna come back as a citizen on a regular basis.
Nice.
Based on
Hey, all
stuff.
right.
I thought I
Right.
might join in I keep threatening Jake with that, his meeting. I don't know if he believes me or not, but you never know, right?
Can we, put
So,
you, can we put you on some boards?
no.
Oh, come on.
Depends what it is.
Yeah, okay.
I might be
Pension
busy
boards?
though.
Feral
So
cat board.
we've this is just a formality to say we wrapped up the ERP project and implemented Workday successfully, in my opinion. Now there's definitely some issues and ups and downs and bumps in the road like we expected, but there's nothing is broken. Nothing, you know, that's a big thing. We have like probably 25 tickets sitting in the help desk system where we ask everyone to submit when they have an issue, and that can be maybe that they think they need to see a report that they can't see or something like that. So these aren't necessarily errors or bugs or problems, which is a good thing. To be sitting here with 25 open tickets is a very good place to be in 2 months after go live. You know, but there's some things that people are working through, business processes that you realize when it's live, like, and then the staff are working through troubleshooting those items to the best resolution, and just being careful that we're not throwing out a bunch of security, you know, letting somebody, oh, you need that, well, here you go, just have it. We're making sure we go through a process to keep things as they should be and have the separation of duties within the different departments. So we did our training with the staff. We still work. Some items are training issues. You know, somebody might submit a ticket that they can't do something, but really it's that they maybe just needed some extra training, and then we're developing ongoing items as they come up. If we realize we needed to add some training or do something like that, we can put it on. So, but overall, I think it's gone very low key, and there's many other organizations that are looking at our implementation as a role model, that this went really well. So Workday were actually going to submit us as a profile city, as a, you know, never an easy thing to do. We said that from the beginning, but overall, all things said and done, it's gone pretty well, and everyone's worked really hard on it. And I think it was great to do it in the year's time. I know everyone always wants more time, but it's nice to have ripped the Band-Aid off and be where we are and not looking at another whole year of this disruption, because it is a disruptive thing to do. So, and everyone's still got their work done, got their day-to-day jobs done. We got paid, and we got paid in the new system. It's the first thing I was looking for. Not for the money even, I just want to make sure that the payroll went out. So that's a big thing. So I'm just very happy with it, and thank you for all your support. And the project has transitioned into a Workday advisory board, so the main team leads are now going to continue to meet and make sure that you're getting the most out of the investment in Workday, not just let the system sit there and not make the most of it, because there's lots of things that come out that are new functionality that we will be looking to leverage. But the good thing about Workday is that you are forced to have the 2 updates a year. So every week there's an update that comes out for patches, fixes, bugs, all of those little things. Then there's a monthly update, and then 2 times a year is a major update on functionality where they roll out some things whether you like it or not. They're all good things, but then also you get to see new features that you get to test or see if you want to opt in for them, and eventually they will become part of the product. And they also take customer feedback and roll that into the product. So this year they used 600, what they call a brainstorm, is when a customer says, hey, we think this would be really good in Workday, we'd like to see this. They actually roll that back in, so it's kind of nice that we have that. So everyone's in a good spot and ready to move forward. And this will be my last update. I'm leaving the city on the 5th of March, because I was on as you know, this was a contract anyway, so I'm going to go on and do some more ERP projects because I like them. So somebody's got to like it, right?
Glutton for punishment, I guess,
Yeah.
right?
Till I get in the next one and think, what did I do?
How long have you been with us?
Since July 2017.
So I got to tell you, when we we approved this project and Jake brought you in the first time that you stood there, I was thinking, and you were talking about the timeline, I'm thinking, is this thing really gonna take this long? But I gotta tell you, I get it now, because having, coming in and out and coming by City Hall, seeing the classes, seeing the training, seeing the meetings, seeing from a 30,000 foot view, albeit it's a lot, and it's been a big undertaking, and it was probably something that we as a city should have done 10 years prior, because I know we got every dime we could out of it last time, but
And then some.
I just want to say I appreciate everything you've done and the work that you put in this, and it's great to see somebody who takes a project and really makes the project theirs, takes full ownership in it. There's no question about that, and I think that's been instrumental to getting this to where it's at today, and thanks, and I wish you the best.
Well, thank you.
And you move
We'll
on.
say, why don't we
but-
start with Scott?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was just, and I didn't mean to jump in, but when you're standing there talking, and I was thinking, and
You're
that was what I
excited.
was thinking about was when we first did this and we looked at this timeline, because if you'd asked me, well, how long will this take? I'd have said, I don't know, 60, 90 days, whatever, and
Don't say that
I'd have got
out
laughed
loud.
right out of the room, right? So, but to see
60
now
to
what
90
it
days.
really is and what's been involved, I have a whole new appreciation for that. So, thanks for that.
Drew, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks really isn't enough. Appreciate the efforts and the dedication and the help and the professionalism in getting us to this level, of course. And it was a long process, but you're probably glad it's over too. And thank you for bringing us into the 21st century, I guess,
Right.
because we were way outdated
Mm-hmm.
for a long time, many years.
Chase?
I echo those sentiments. Thank you very much.
Marilyn?
Well, I'd say congratulations. I know when I met with you and Alan, I was a little bit skeptical that things would go so well.
You're not the only one. I've been through that conversation many times before.
But I've been around new systems, and I just think that from everything I've heard and the fact that you're bowing out essentially on schedule, it says to me that a very good decision was made and that you've really facilitated staff getting trained, as have all the directors, and making the work flow. So congratulations.
Well, thanks. Well, and really, it's everybody, because I wouldn't have. This is everybody else who did all this work. I just kind of helped keep it rolling. So they did a really good job here of
Agreed.
working very hard and dedicated. But people didn't have to. It was good because people weren't having to go so stressed out weekends and evenings and all that stuff that I've seen in other. I mean, they definitely did their extra hours and things, but it wasn't. I didn't see too many tears or anything. So. I'll
That's
find out
good.
tomorrow if I
Some.
even spoke now. I'll get it in the neck tomorrow. No, but thank you for all your support, and Jake and everybody, all the staff are very supportive, and it's been a good thing. So
Well done.
be up
Thank
here
you
in a
very
couple of
much.
weeks with my citizen comments, and I'll see you then.
All right. We'll look forward to
So,
it.
Mayor, well, if you don't mind, while she's still up there, I'd like to also pass my thank you to you. You've been a superstar to us, and I guess your program management skills are gonna be missed, but your wit is definitely gonna be missed by me. And we appreciate, at least from the city manager's position as the executive sponsor who you work for. From the bottom of my heart, I very much appreciate everything you did, cracking the whip and keeping us all on track as best you could. So thank you very much. I know you're going on to bigger and better things. We also know where your phone number is, and if you change
I
it,
know, I'm
apparently you're
changing
coming to
it.
council every other week. So we'll be able to talk to you now. Council, what's going to happen now is Jane's going to step down, and we have the position funded for a little while longer, but we are going to downgrade it into more of a less of a program management, change management person, and a little more into a fixing the stuff that needs to be fixed kind of person. So Alan's got that for action. We are starting interviews now, and we should have somebody on station here fairly quickly to fill in the void that she left and go into some type of maintenance and upkeep situation. We'll continue training and kind of tweaking the system as best we can.
Perfect.
Thank you,
Thank
Jane.
you very much.
Thank you, Jen.
Item 15, update from some group called Team Volusia.
There's Keith.
Woohoo! Who is this guy?
Who's this guy? I'll identify myself. And we're gonna tag team tonight.
All right.
You and Robin?
No.
Oh.
We'll see how
Awesome.
that happens.
That could happen. Good evening. This is a great opportunity. We appreciate having the chance to update the City Council this evening. Many of you know me, but I would like to make sure that I introduce Heather Schuberg. Heather is our Executive Vice President. She was acquired and identified through a national search. She spent many years at Enterprise Florida as the Senior Vice President, was the incentive guru really for every state project. And then actually left and went to the Orlando Economic Partnership for a year, heading up their strategy on advanced manufacturing. Her background is aviation aerospace. She worked on many of the top aviation aerospace projects in the state. And I know when we went to our stakeholders that was an important aspect that we looked for in a new employee because of our interest in aviation aerospace, all that's happening at Embry-Riddle. So I'm delighted to introduce Heather Schuberg. She will have celebrated her first anniversary on April 15th, so she's not quite a year.
And before you
And
hand
my
it to her,
name,
your name is, sir?
my name is Keith Norden.
Say that again?
Keith Norden.
I've heard of him.
Keith Norden. And do you want my address? My title?
No.
No, I'm afraid what address you'd actually give, but
Okay, I have
Good enough,
many
sir.
addresses. So anyway,
Many addresses.
and I'm president and CEO of Team Volusia.
very good.
Tonight we're going to present really just a year, the past year, and 2019 in review. And a couple of things come to mind are three programs that we're very proud of. Talent recruitment, it's so necessary with the type of companies we're trying to recruit to Volusia County. Talent and workforce is a number one component. It is always asked when companies are considering a Volusia County presence. So we worked very closely with Livabilia Media, which is a national quality place magazine. You've got a sample in your package, and this is the first year of a 3-year campaign. And we have used it extensively when we've done our recruiting, both nationally and globally. It's also available electronically. Our competitor incentive analysis actually was born out of our strategies for success, and that is a 3-year strategy which we'll go into. But we engaged Ryan LLC, an international economic development finance firm, to really compete, to do a competitiveness assessment of Volusia County incentives as compared to many other communities in Florida, as well as outside the state of Florida. That has been presented. It's been presented to our Practitioners Council, and we have that report on file. And we'll go into a little bit of the recommendations, but the third one is the Volusia Site Readiness Program, and that came out of the fact that we need shovel-ready sites to market to our prospects. We have a lot of green space, but we need to make sure that we have a number of sites that we can feel comfortable and our companies feel comfortable in considering that are analyzed, and we know what site improvements have been done and what needs to be done on each of these sites. So it's a really important program. The incentive analysis recommendations, they came up with several incentives that they would recommend Volusia County to consider. Of course, one is property tax abatement. Another is mobility fee, impact fee waiver. Businesses create a number of jobs in order to have impact fees waived. These are just things that are done in other communities across Florida. Job Growth Incentive Program. Businesses in the QTI bringing jobs to Volusia County receive some force of additional cash grant and expedited permitting. And you know, we all know how important that is. They could apply to businesses that receive the QTI incentive and the business license tax abatement. The site readiness program, we have the report ready, and it's been distributed. Minimum 50-acre sites were considered. Industrial plans, zone industrial or desire to change zoning to industrial. And then we considered properties east, west, and southeast Volusia. The Real Estate Task Force, which compiled the top real estate brokers and in the area, evaluated 20 sites and whittled it down to 10 on September 13th, and then added 4 additional sites for a total of 14 sites to be considered. And they have actually been ranked by Quest Site Solutions, and the Board of Directors will be given a report on March 13th. And then our marketing, that's a major aspect of our organization, since we are the official public-private business recruitment firm and organization for Volusia County. We're very proud of the marketing we've done, including our outreach, the total numbers of emails sent, almost 25,000 emails, website visitors, 21,100, and social media reaches almost 500,000. So, and all this deals with business development. And this is a recap of our year 2019, and I appreciate all the hard work that our staff did, and our cities and our partners did to make this happen. We were able to locate 7 companies with a total of 845 jobs, with CapEx of $126.8 million and total payroll of $29.155 million. And that spread over the entire county with a total economic impact, and that's what's important to remember, of $157.5 million. That is an impact to the entire county, so we're excited about that. Heather, would you like to take over the vision of 2020? Thank you.
Just real quick before we leave this slide, I also wanted to mention, so in the past 18 months, we've had about 20 projects that have considered Port Orange as a possibility. And 11 of those have conducted site visits, and so we're still in the running for some of those, so stay tuned. Vision 2020, it seems to be a theme that everyone has this year. We have a few things going on, one of which is to complete our strategy for success. So that was what Keith just mentioned. We started that in 2017, and we plan to execute on the remaining items related to that. We're going to focus on aviation and aerospace specifically, and initiate a 3-year strategic plan for 21 through 23 by the end of the year as well. So the strategy for success had a bunch of different things related to business attraction, marketing, workforce, entrepreneurship, organizational services, etc. The things that we have left to do on that are on this, and you'll see one of those things. Oh, my slide got messed up. One of the things that we have completed, the site readiness program, we have the final report. We got the final report yesterday. It will go out to everyone tomorrow. As Keith mentioned, we have a board meeting on March 13th where the consultant will be coming down to provide her insight on those 14 specific sites. In addition, the day before, we're going to be having a workshop on that, and I encourage Tim to attend to hear about that. Even though Port Orange didn't have a site in that mix, it is very important to hear what other communities have going on around you, because there are several around you. Focus on aviation and aerospace this year. So we have looked at some of the shows related to aviation and aerospace, and we have quite a significant agenda related to some trade shows and other events where we will be out meeting with companies specifically, doing one-on-one meetings and targeting those companies for location to Volusia County. And then finally, initiating the 3-year strategy. We will hopefully be getting folks engaged in this In the next coming months, we do plan to do an elected officials 101 for economic development sometime in the next couple of months as well, which will hopefully serve as a kickoff for initiating this next 3-year strategy. Just a little quick update on some of the community data and goals. Since this was last completed, we were here October maybe? September or October. So we updated some of these numbers for you with the employment overview. We just had the Q a couple weeks ago, and so you saw that average wages are tracking upward. Our unemployment is very, very low. We're one of the lowest in the state right now. Local data, this is kind of interesting with the workflow. Folks that are coming into the community every day and folks that are leaving the community for employment opportunities. From 2015 to 2017, this data lags pretty significantly, but there was a slight shift. You have more folks that are staying in the community to work. From an industrial standpoint and an office report standpoint, there's more vacancy for both of those, office and industrial product, which is good because we need product. Without product, it's hard for folks to grasp where they might put themselves. So if an industrial project is coming in and they don't have the applicable space, you can understand how that might be complicated to get them to land here ultimately. Again, with the employment growth areas that you have in the community, these are the areas that I know that we've been focusing on, trying to get companies to land in these areas with infill and other development opportunities. And I understand you had a significant development opportunity just recently as well. And then finally, competitiveness is something that is near and dear to my heart. I spent a lot of time when I was at Enterprise Florida working on state policy related to competitiveness and incentives. We created this slide at some point in time to help folks understand how important it is to build competitiveness and what competitiveness means in the project process related to recruitment projects as such. So what does competitiveness look like? It can look like building a tax structure that is friendly. It can look like expedited permitting, having a government that's approachable, and being willing to work and partner with a company to get them across the finish line so that they can get up and running as fast as they can to do what they do best, whether that's creating a widget or doing a marketing and sales plan for somebody. And so we work with all of these types of folks along the way. Marketing to them is one of our organization's strong suit. We market to those folks to try to get them to be interested in our area. All the way through the project process, which is when everyone gets to put a shovel in the ground and announcing a win, which is a fantastic opportunity. As Keith mentioned, the site selection factors, and I love showing these because from a consultant's perspective and a company perspective, the number one thing in both is the availability of skilled labor. And what does this community have that is most important to that? The ability to grow talent. We use this slide in our pitch to companies because it's an important one for us to showcase the school system that we have in this area. I'm an IB graduate, and so I'm proud to have that up here. I may not be a Spruce Creek IB graduate, but I'm an IB graduate. And so it's one of the strong points that we have for our community to showcase that we have talent and we're growing talent in our area. So how do we make Port Orange more competitive? There are opportunities. We have the incentive analysis that was completed this year. I'd be happy to sit down with anyone who is interested in talking about that. I've worked with incentives all across the state. I've seen hundreds of different ideas, creativity, and all of the things. It doesn't always have to be a financial incentive as well, and so that's a key that a lot of people don't necessarily understand, is that you don't have to throw money at projects in order to win them. And then as well as the site readiness program that I spoke of earlier, working closely with us to identify other opportunities. I know that one of the things that the Practitioners Council recently suggested that we try to help identify those particular sites that are 5 to 50 acres that support redevelopment opportunities and infill, and how we might attract development to those areas as well. And with that, any questions?
Thank you. Marilyn, you want to start?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chase?
I have no questions either. Thank you.
Drew?
May I just like say thanks for the efforts and the diligence. Appreciate it.
Scott?
Can you just quickly comment on, you had mentioned the vision there moving forward to focus on the space industry. And
Sure.
as you guys see that, is that something that is very regionalized to Volusia County, kind of more in the Edgewater Oak Hill area? Is that what the vision is, or is it you looking to spread that out all over Volusia County?
Sure, great question. So spreading that out all over Volusia County. And so we have aviation and aerospace marketing materials. Just earlier today, we were in DeLand meeting with an aviation company as well. And so you see that that really does spread the gamut across the county. And also in line with the county's Bryce study, which I think you have received a copy of previously, the supply chain can run the gamut. It can be creating, you know, a little thing as big as this, where it goes into a rocket. And so you don't have to be, you know, 20 miles down the road to be creating something for the space industry. So it really truly is a more regional thing. Where I thought you were going was a broader regional thing, which is also very important. So within the Central Florida market, we have a lot of opportunity. We have a lot of opportunity to partner with our neighbors in Central Florida as well. So.
Was and I may add, for those of you that were at our annual meeting, Scott Henderson is the Florida Launch Director for Blue Origin, a company that we worked very hard to locate in Volusia County, but because of a site situation, they went to Brevard. But he said, he mentioned that they're building a 600-foot rocket, and everything that goes in the rocket, as far as payload, can be manufactured in a concentric circle around Brevard County. So it doesn't all have to be made adjacent to their facility. And Space Florida would concur that space hardware, orbiters, the rest, radar equipment, the list goes on, that's used for space can be manufactured outside of that immediate zone next to the facility.
Thanks.
Sure.
Mayor, well, if you don't, may I?
May I?
You may, and
then
then
I will let you-
then I will may.
And then you will
if-
may.
if-
Even though it's February. The
That's true.
one thing I wanted to mention is that even when projects go into other cities in the area, more often than not, those people end up living here in Port Orange. So we know that even when we don't win a project, granted, I'd like to win a project. Don't get me wrong.
You made that clear.
Well, many a
Mayor.
time, but I do realize that it will impact this community. So we want to see good wage earning jobs coming here. And I think the other thing of interest is, and we've talked about this many a time as well, is the brain drain. We have a lot of talent that continues to leave our area to get better paying jobs in other areas. And even if we can, I'd like to keep them here, but even if we can't, if we can at least keep them in the region, I think that's a win for all of us moving forward. So I think that are two objectives in which, I will make this offer again and again, is I am available if you need me to help seal a deal, to meet with people, to talk about Port Orange, to talk about Volusia County. I'm at your disposal.
Thank you, Mayor.
Jake?
Yes, sir. One of the things that I think the city of Port Orange and the staff here has done is and council, by the way, is dug us out of the hole of Port Orange is impossible to work with. Having said that, one of the things that surprised me, not through my dealings with Team Volusia, but kind of in the periphery, is that site selectors and developers watch our meetings. They talk to other developers. They see how fun it is to go up to community development. So keep that in the back of your mind as we move forward and talk about things in development and development discussions here. That something we say today may make or break us in 9 months when a big developer comes and wants to lay down some roots in Port Orange. So I'm not saying to not vote the way you want to vote, but realize that our comments and concerns now may affect us in the future as well.
How we do it is just as important as what we do.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Board appointments, interviews, and reports. This is the Citizens Advisory Committee for the TPO. As Bobby Ball scrambles from the back row again. Do you have to switch notes?
Believe it or not, I was making notes about what you just mentioned, and as a consultant, you made a very good point, and really, how you conduct yourself up here is incredibly telling, and says a lot about us as a community. It wasn't, but not too long ago, where I was embarrassed to stand up here and say, I do things for you guys. And it's not like that now. So just as a compliment to you guys, that means a lot. The other thing too is consistency. Consistency amongst your staff and how they interpret things and how they conduct themselves and how they give you information. And then consistency from you guys to them. It is a pleasure. And
Just for that, I'm not going to pick on you and ask you if your wife told you to say that.
She didn't tell me to say that. That was just feeding off the conversation. So,
All right, sir, do you
anyway,
have a report to give or not?
I do. So Bobby Ball with the CSC for the TPO. We had our monthly meeting. A lot of housekeeping stuff, updating the 5-year TIP and the 2-year work program. Stuff you're going to see, in the coming weeks and months. But the biggest topic right now is the long-range transportation plan. And we're gearing up in the middle of that, and it's a big slog, but it's also very important to how we get funding. And so, one of the very first maps I saw today about they always start with the last year's or the last 5-year plan. And so one of the things I saw on it was Williamson Boulevard is not on it, and I know you guys asked me about that last time. So I made sure to mention it the very first time it came up, and it will continue to get mentioned every time going forward. So that being said, there are some ways that our citizens can participate in the process. There's 2 surveys, one's out and one's coming up. It's the Connect 2045 survey. You can get it on the TPO website. Please do. It takes 4 minutes to fill out, and it's just a couple of questions, easy to do. The other one that's coming up is the Tell the TPO survey. That hasn't been issued yet. We're going through the final questions now. It's going to be a 10-question survey that asks pretty generic questions, but it really helps inform the TPO and staff and the committees on how and what's important moving forward.
I think
So-
Lois pushes that out to me, and I push it to council as well, so you should get it right in your inbox when it happens.
And I think with that, I've talked enough tonight.
Can those, hang on a second, Bobby.
Yeah.
Can those surveys be linked and shared on our social media platforms as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
That's what I
Because
know.
you're right. I mean, that's probably the number one thing that we get encountered by residents is traffic related. All of Port Orange specifically, but
Sure.
it's all Volusia County. And
Right.
man, if they've got a platform and a way to weigh in on that, I'd love to be sharing that with folks that can do that, because I think that's really important. I think that's a great thing. So
A couple of these things, they're looking, their goals are like 700 respondents or 1,500 respondents, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, in a county of how many people we have, in a city of 60,000 people, we can't get more than 1,000 people to respond to something. It's important that we try.
Well, if they can make an app and it's a quick survey, they can do it while they're waiting in the different light cycles on Dunlop. Probably you can knock that out pretty quick, but.
Yeah, except when you travel in Granada, they'll have even more time, and they'll still skew
That's
towards
right.
that way.
Yeah, but it's, in all seriousness though, I will tell you that I think it was last week, one of the things I did notice just on different social media pages, whatever, I noticed people in Ormond, people in Port Orange, people in New Smyrna, all having the same issues with east and westbound connectors throughout Volusia County, and so it's definitely a regional thing, and I think surveys like that are really good, and they can be impactful too. So we'll hope to get the 700 or 1,500 they need.
Why don't we start questions with Scott?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Drew?
I'm good. Thanks, Bobby.
Chase? Marilyn?
I just want to thank you for representing us on the board, because
Sure.
I know that is a slog, as you suggest. So thank you for your time and your continuing interest.
That's right.
Appreciate you being an honest advocate for us.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Brian.
Parks and Rec Advisory Board ballot announcement. Last meeting, we elected James Richard and Michael Navarro to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and we read the results of that, but because they're written ballots, The city attorney had a concern that we did not read the ballot results, so we're going to cure that right now. Perfect. In the form of Ms. Robin Renwick.
Robin Fenwick, City
Open.
Clerk. So the ballots that I have are Chase Tremont voted for Michael Navarra and Robert Reinhagen. Marilyn Ford voted for James Richard and Robert Reinhagen. Scott Stiltner voted for Michael Navarra and James Richard. Drew Bastian voted for Michael Navarra and James Richard. And Mayor Burnett voted for James Richard and Michael Navarra.
Okay,
Thank you, Rob.
there it be.
There it be.
Item 18, Fire Pension Trustee Appointment. This is a one-year term because of an adjustment we made with the terms recently, and we do have that, that was filled by Jim Reardon, and he does wish to be reappointed, and I don't believe we have any other applications. So I will entertain a motion to that effect right now.
Mayor, I'd like to nominate James Reardon.
Second.
We have a motion and or a nomination and a second.
And if I could just say, Mr. Reardon is not here tonight. I saw him earlier at the Fire Pension
Yeah.
Board, but he had just traveled into town and he was extremely tired. So I indicated to him that I would be happy to nominate him. I've now worked with him since I've sat on the board. His application was part of the materials. He is very well qualified. He understands the intricacies of the investments more than the rest of us, and so that certainly is very helpful. And he currently chairs the committee. I would enthusiastically request that he be reappointed.
It is interesting to note that he has a day job as a financial advisor, so he has a lot of background. And in the past, in filling citizen positions on these boards, we've not necessarily always had applicants with as thorough background that matches up, and this one does. Certainly, maybe I'm tipping my hand about how I feel about Jim. Are there any other nominations? With that, nominations are closed. Would anyone care to speak about the nomination?
I'll just echo real quick that Marilyn's comments are point on. The value of having somebody like Mr. Reardon on a board is incredible. And in the short time that I filled in on that board, I would say the exact same thing. I mean, it's clear that he's got a expertise that is absolutely valued and treasured to have on that, and we get
And
a
he's
lot.
willing to share it.
Yeah, and that's fabulous, and it's great that we're able to take advantage of that. So.
Any other comments?
I'd agree. He's more than qualified, well qualified, willing to do it, and I think he's been a member since around 2005 or 2006. He's been serving
Not quite that long.
He's been serving on the board for many years, so that's a good thing.
Any other comments? There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Mr. Reardon is reappointed, which just brings us to item 19. The public hearing portion of the meeting is now open. First reading of ordinance number 2020-2, the small-scale future land use map amendment for 1200 Spartan Avenue and 5700 Spruce Creek Road. Ordinance number 2020-2 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, relating to comprehensive planning, amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan, amending the future land use designation for plus or minus 0.23 acres from urban medium residential 4 to 8 units per acre to office residential transition, providing for conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2020-2.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second. The item is open for discussion on the floor.
Good evening, Penelope Cruz, Planning Manager. The subject property includes 2 parcels of land. One has historically been developed with Vans Air Conditioning and the other with a mobile home. Vans Air Conditioning, as you may know, has been a commercial business in the community since the early 1970s. However, the property has always been designated urban medium residential and has always had a zoning of for residential mobile homes going back to the 70s. It was the 70s. So the property's been a long-standing commercial non-conforming use. So the property is recently sold, and the new owners would like to develop both parcels as a health exercise club. So this is considered a change of use, and in our land development code, when there's a change of use, you have to bring the property up to code. So tonight is the first step in doing that, is to apply a future land use designation that matches that long-standing non-residential use on the property. So like we said, this is the first step. If this is approved, then the applicants would come forward with a site plan to bring the property up to code. They plan on removing the mobile home on the one parcel, and that's where they would build the parking lot for the exercise facility. Staff has reviewed it, and there's adequate public facilities to address this use, and is recommending approval and can answer any questions you may have.
Why don't we start with Drew?
Yeah, that has been a long, I can remember as a kid driving by and seeing vans, air conditioners, so it's just been a long time thing, but I think it's time to make it a appropriate zoning and take care of that. So it's been several decades they've been around.
No questions?
No.
Pretty cut and dry for you?
Yep.
Chase?
I'm good.
Scott? Marilyn?
I don't know whether it was this or 20 because they're linked, but in the materials they said you got 3 calls from citizens. I was just curious, what did the citizens ask?
They just, so when we put those signs up, a lot of times people just call just wanting to know what it is. And so nobody had any opposing comments. They just wanted to know what the sign was up for.
Okay, great.
Anyone here care to speak to the item? Come on up, Robert.
Mayor, council members, Robert Reinigen, 1425 Dexter Drive North, Port Orange. I understand the desire to codify the existing non-conforming use, but I believe that this would be a mistake. From the Planning Commission presentation, I understand that there is a third lot that's also owned by the petitioners, although you're only currently rezoning 2 of them, or a new land use. But I want you to think about what happens in 5 or 10 years. If this is a big success, the petitioners might want to expand or relocate. Or if they decide it's not going as they had thought, they may decide to sell it. So now you're faced with the potential for new owners, and with all of these new conditions and opportunities to develop that property. The property can now be, the existing building can be torn down. The property can be redeveloped with a new building on it, or the existing building can be expanded. And we've got a third parcel that they currently have a mobile home on, and that can then, they can come to the board again and get that rezoned so that to accommodate the bigger building. So from a longer term standpoint, I think there's a real problem here. So we see a bad situation becomes more uncompatible with the neighborhood. And this brings me to the issue of equal treatment for equals. By this I mean that by rezoning this property, you are creating a moral and ethical obligation to permit all the other properties along this stretch of Spruce Creek Road to be made available for other aspiring entrepreneurs to set up businesses. So I encourage you to reject this request. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak to the item? There being none, back to council. Final comments or questions?
No.
There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. That brings us to first reading of ordinance number 2020-3, administrative rezoning for 1200 Spartan Avenue, 5700 Spruce Creek Road, 4020 Nova Road, 3997 Nova Road, 4025 Nova Road, and 4031 Nova Road. May I have, I guess I should read it first, huh? Ordinance number 2020-3 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, rezoning property consisting of a plus or minus 0.23 acres from residential mobile home to professional office, plus or minus 4.16 acres from Spruce Creek Center Plan Commercial Development, PCD, to Community Commercial, CC, and 15 acres from Planned Commercial Development, PCD, to Community Commercial, CC, authorizing revision of the official zoning atlas and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve ordinance 2020-3.
Second.
We have a motion and a proper second. The item is open and on the floor, and here you are again.
Good evening, Penelope Cruz. The proposed administrative amendment would change the zoning for 3 different areas to 3 different properties along Spruce Creek Road. All 3 subject properties are long-standing commercial developments, but the current zoning designations on these properties restrict several commercial uses typically found on properties zoned with city commercial zoning designations. The first area is the area that we were just discussing for the future land use amendment. This is the zoning step. And so the proposal here is to change the zoning for residential mobile home to professional office. As we discussed, this property's been a long-standing non-conforming commercial use. And so this zoning would apply a non-residential category in it, but not the more intense commercial, the professional office, which is a much more limited list of uses. And as we discussed, if it's approved, the property owners would want to redevelop this site, submit a site plan to redevelop this property as a health exercise club, removing this mobile home, and this is the area where they would like to build the parking lot, landscaping, things like that. Areas 2 and 3 are both proposed to be rezoned from planned commercial development to community commercial. Area 2 is the little bit over 4 acres, Spruce Creek Center Shopping Center. It was originally developed as a commercial plaza in 1981, and it was zoned C1 Shopping Center Commercial. In 1994, it was rezoned to planned commercial development, and the Spruce Creek Center Master Development Agreement was approved. Over the years, we've had a lot of calls for potential tenants going into spaces there that are vacant, and because of the very refined list of uses that was put in place back in the 90s, they've had to turn away tenants that are very common in most shopping centers. So rezoning this property to community commercial would allow the ability to fill those existing vacant tenant spaces, and allow for a list of permitted uses that's current and flexible as opposed to that list from the 1990s. The next area, Area 3, is the 15-acre Riverwood Shopping Center. Similarly, this property developed as a commercial plaza in 1988, and in 1990, it was one of the properties that the city rezoned to planned commercial development, not the property owner, and therefore it didn't have a master development agreement ever established. So it has a PCD zoning with no master development agreement. And what that means is there's a very limited amount of permitted uses that was put into the code for these properties, but it also doesn't have any dimensional criteria for any future improvements or redevelopment of the property. So rezoning this property to community commercial will provide that flexibility to fill tenant spaces as the need comes up. It'll also provide that regulatory framework, our land development code, with dimensional requirements for any future improvements that may come up or any potential redevelopment. It's just an aerial view of those 2 PCD areas. Staff is recommending approval and try to answer any questions you might have.
Council, questions?
Just a quick comment. I'm happy to see the interest on this side of town. So much has happened on the west side, and we talk about development. We need to talk a lot more about redevelopment, and I'm pleased to see this, particularly this area. That's where I grew up. That old box office video that used to be there. I can't tell you how many videos I rented from that place. So I'm happy to see the open door for reinvestment in here.
Any other questions or comments, council? Would anyone here care to speak to the item? Back to us, final comments? Jake, Matt, anything new we need to add on this one? Okay. With that, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Fremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Closes the public hearing portion of the agenda, brings us to regular agenda. Item 21, award of ITB number 19-31 mechanical street sweeping services. The recommended motion is to move to approve award of ITB number 19-31 mechanical street sweeping to the lowest responsive bidder, USA Services of Florida, with alternate 1 and 2 included with an annual spending authority limited to the budget amount as approved by City Council, authorizing the completion, review, and approval of final contract documents by the City Attorney and City Manager, and authorizing the Mayor and City Clerk to execute the final contract documents with the provided direction. That's the recommended motion. Who wants to make that?
So moved.
Second.
You got off easy. We have a motion, a proper second. The item's on the floor, and we have a familiar face in front of us to tell us why we want to do it this way.
It's been a while since I've been up here with you folks. Good evening, Lynn Stevens, Public Works and Utilities Director. So we wanted to provide you some information on this bid award. One of the things staff is asking is to award the contract for 1 year and evaluate some options for year 2 and 3. So tonight we're going to review some of the background information on the street sweeping process and what we do and how we do things. We're also going to talk about different levels of service that are required versus what's optional. And then we're going to look at some in-house, because that's also something that we want to ask council for some direction on. And then we're going to provide you our recommendation. So the purpose of street sweeping is actually to maintain our municipal separate storm sewer system permit as issued by EPA. This is a requirement in order for us to have a major stormwater system in our city and discharge that stormwater into open bodies of water. What the street sweeping does is it helps keep our curbs and gutters clean, keeps debris out of that stormwater system, helps protect our stormwater system and keep it flowing the way it's supposed to be. It also helps reduce some of the pollution that could get into our receiving waters. And we do have quite a few protected receiving waters in our city. Right now, our current vendor is USA Services of Florida. They're also the lowest bid. Currently, we are...
At a lower price than what we pay now.
Yes. So currently we're paying $29.24 per sweep mile. The bid came in a little less than that. So we are reducing the cost there. This currently is funded out of drainage, and what we're going to be asking council to do is award the bid for 1 year and then talk about alternatives for the following years. So currently our street sweeping right now incorporates these areas. You can see the actual estimated miles of roadway, then how many times a year we do those roadways, the number of passes. So let's talk about number of passes. If you have a 2-lane road, we basically make 2 passes. 1 up, 1 back. 4-lane road, we'll do 4 lanes. Dunlawton gets 4 lanes. They only do the curbs on Dunlawton. And you can see the levels of sweeping that we have. Your arterial roadways include Dunlawton from the bridge to Williamson, Nova Road, and Ridgewood. Our collectors would be Williamson, that's from Summer Trees North by the Pavilion, down to Airport Road. We do Clyde Morris from North City all the way down to Taylor Road. We do Herbert, Oak Street, Spruce Creek from Nova to Taylor. We do Victoria Gardens, Taylor, Madeline, and Willow Run as part of our collector roads. Our city facilities are pretty well self-explanatory, but they include the Allen Green Center as required by lease agreement, the annex, the Causeway Park. We also do City Hall parking lot, around City Center, Cypress Head Golf Course as required in our lease agreement. We do the gym, the Public Works Utilities complex on Oak Street. We also do Riverwalk Park, Chamber of Commerce down there, YMCA in Lakeside, and that's included in our city facilities. So we have public roads that have curbs that are required to be swept as part of our permit. We also have non-curbed public roads that we are currently sweeping. We also sweep private roads in private areas. So I just wanted you to be aware of the current level of service.
Why are we doing private roads? 'Cause-
Let's start with Chase.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Lynn, why are we doing private roads?
Private roads are what we have done for many, many years, and that
Usual
level
and
of service
customary.
has not been changed.
Okay.
Um,
I'm
the-
just curious, because there's a lot of things that we don't do with private roads.
That is correct, but street sweeping has been one we've done in private communities.
And I'm fine with that. I was
Sure.
just,
I don't know the reasoning behind it, to be honest with you. I know it was included in the solid waste rates in the early ons, back in the 90s, 80s and 90s. I've reviewed back that far. It was included as part of the solid waste rates. So I'm assuming because it was part of the garbage rates, street sweeping was done as a requirement of garbage service and not as part of stormwater, because you didn't have a stormwater permit back then. So now you have a stormwater permit. Sweeping is required by permit, but sweeping is only required in certain areas. It's required on any roads that have curbs or that have major drainage inlets that go to the outstanding water bodies. Normally, you are not required under our permits to do non-curbed roads, and many of your private communities have their own stormwater systems that they maintain. So again, this is one of the reasons why when we were looking at this bid specification, we broke all those streets out and we provided all the options to council to tell us if you want to reduce level of service or you want to retain same level of service.
And I think part of that is taking that, what somebody earlier called that 30,000 feet view, is what happens in one neighborhood when it's neglected affects what happens in the next.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
And I
we wanted
apologize,
to.
You're not done, are you?
No,
Keep
we
going.
wanted to look at all those options and find out what's the cost benefit of not doing those areas. And does council wish to continue providing those services? At the end, you will see we are going to recommend you maintain the same level of service, at least for the first year of this contract, regardless of which way you want to go after the first year, because private communities are already used to that service. And if we're not going to provide that service to the private communities that have HOAs or the customers that are on uncurbed roads, we want to make sure that we get that word out to those folks so that private communities can pick up their own sweeping services.
If they can afford it.
and would that be, we would require them to do that correctly, correct?
Well, that would be required under their water management district stormwater permit to maintain the health of their stormwater ponds.
Right.
Mhm. Okay,
Pardon the interruption. Thanks
No
for the
worries.
answer.
that's what I'm here for. So again, the contract came, we had 3 bids. The lowest bid was USA Services, our current contractor. They came in at $27.74 per sweep mile versus $29.24 historically. So we're presenting you 4 different options. Again, tonight we're asking for approval of contract award and then direction from council on where we go from there. So option 1 would be to award the contract at $27.74 for 1 year with the option to renew for 2 additional 1-year terms and maintain the current level of service. You would still see an estimated savings of $9,700. Now, when you do the math on some of these roads, you might say, well, wait a minute, that's $20,000 more than what I calculate. You're right, because we put $20,000 in all of these purchase orders for additionals. Cleaning up after city events at city centers, additional money outside routine sweeping, the parade. There are a lot of other things that we call in after hurricanes and storms. We call in for additional service. So we add that as a contingency to the contracts. I've included that in this number. And I have added $20,000 extra annually. We never exceed that amount, but I like to have it should we have another storm. Not that I'm asking for one, mind you.
Please don't.
So that would be option 1. Option 2 would also include awarding the contract for the first year with the option to renew for 2 additional 1-year terms, but to reduce the level of service to the absolute minimum required in our MS4, which we're asking to, if this is the option council chooses, that we not enforce or change our level of service until year 2, so we can provide that notice to the current customers that that service is no longer going to be available. This would require us to sweep all of the curbed public streets. It would also incorporate the arterials, collectors, city centers, city facilities as required under our EPA permit. It would not include non-curb public streets or private streets. Non-curb public streets generally utilize the grass on the side of the streets to filter out debris, and therefore it keeps debris from getting into many of the swales. But as you know, you can still see quite a bit of debris in the swales, even then. And again, private systems generally have their own stormwater system. And that would give us a savings of about $31,776 per year.
Due to the reduced level of service.
Correct. So then we come to option 3. Option 3 is kind of a combination. We again are asking council to award the contract for 1 year with the option to renew for 2 additional 1-year terms, reduce the level of service only to maintain those public streets in year 2 of the contract. So that would eliminate the non-curb streets. This option would only eliminate private streets from the level of service. So this would result in a cost savings of about $17,483 per year. Then we come to option 4. Option 4, again, we're asking council to award the bid for the 1 year at the full level of service that we currently have at $27.74 per sweep mile with no options to renew. We're asking council to provide direction to staff, if this is the option you wish to choose, to allow us to include bringing street sweeping in-house. We believe we can do that. We have looked at it. I've talked to staff. We've looked at it a lot of different ways. This would provide us time to put it in our FY21 budget so that it doesn't modify our FY20 budget that we're already in, and we have not budgeted to incorporate some of the equipment purchase. It would also allow us time for equipment ordering and delivery after October 1st. These street sweepers are bought off the Florida Sheriff's contract, so there's already a contracted price. We've already investigated them, looked at the pricing, maintenance, and other requirements for operating the system. And that would also allow us time to hire the proper personnel, equipment operators to run these, train on the equipment, practice on the equipment before the 1-year contract expires. So looking at what it would cost for in-house, we've taken into account 2 full-time employees with a 40% benefit package, which is pretty standard when we look at these lower level employees. We looked at fuel and maintenance. The manufacturer provided us those estimates for the annual maintenance and fuel charges for these vehicles. We estimate that the vehicles will last us about 10 years. That might be pushing it. We may be looking for one replacement about year 8, but we believe we can get 10 years out of the units. And as you know, the city is very forward thinking. We have a fleet replacement fund. So when you buy a new vehicle into the fleet, you pay for that vehicle up front, and then every year you put money towards that replacement so that you're not hit with a major expense when that time comes to replace the vehicles. So we've included $51,996 annually in our budget for the fleet replacement. I calculated in some insurance costs for vehicle insurance, liability insurance, disposal. Right now we're disposing of approximately 130 tons of debris per year from the current street sweeper. Very difficult to say too many times in a row. And it costs us $28 a ton to take it to the local landfill. They take it to a couple of strategic locations in our city. They dump the sweepers into a roll-off container, and then it gets hauled to the landfill. We added some $10,000 for other operating supplies. It gives us an estimated annual operating budget of $166,654. And we think that that is a very good option for the city. We would have to do a one-time purchase of 2 sweepers, 2 full-time employees, 2 sweepers. We believe will be more than sufficient. It may even provide a little bit of extra time we've allotted for extra time for downtime on the sweeper, for maintenance, cleaning, other activities, special events, things of that nature. We believe that bringing this service in-house, we'd be able to provide a much better service to the city.
What would be the funding mechanism for bringing it in-house? Would it come through Public Works or
Stormwater fund.
Stormwater?
It's a stormwater fund. This is a function of stormwater. Last year in the budget, we moved it from the solid waste fund over to the stormwater fund because the primary purpose of sweeping streets again is to maintain the health of the stormwater system and comply with our EPA permit. So last year we worked with Jake and Dr. Niels, and we brought the street sweeping expense under the drainage fund. So some advantages and of course disadvantages of bringing it in-house is of course pride, ownership, and control. So we believe we'd be able to give a much better look to our city, especially around city center when the leaves are falling like they are right now. It's always a concern to us, and to have USA come in and do extra sweeps will cost extra money for us. So we believe that we can do that within our regular 40-hour work week of the 2 full-time employees. We'd be able to sweep on demand. So if there's an accident or something happens on the streets of our city, right now you're paying $125 per hour to have that sweeper come in, and it takes a couple of hours. We would have the sweeper in our yard and be able to go out. And we would have additional people trained on the sweeper. So if we're sweeping, we're estimating we're going to sweep from 4 a.m. till about 12:30 during the day, Monday through Friday, get the sweeping done on the arterials and major roadways early morning, and then do residential neighborhoods after 7, 8 o'clock in the morning so that the noise doesn't disturb the neighbors. Pretty much what the sweepers are doing currently. And then when they leave at 12:30, if we do have an issue where we need to go out and sweep something up in front of someone's home, a garbage truck, drops or whatever should happen, we would have other folks in our yard that are equipment operators and would be well versed in operating the sweepers. Again, the ability to maintain the current level of service and actually increase the level of service. So if you are having a special event around City Center and it needs to be swept, we'd be able to take care of that before Monday morning when regular business resumes. Of course, disadvantage is the time to hire and retain employees. That is always a challenge for us. So we believe we are at a point now where these types of positions are not a lowest level entry position, and we believe that we'd be able to fill these 2 positions. We just filled a couple in Public Works where we promoted from within. So we believe we'd be able to fill these positions. Turnover rate is always a concern. And of course, local unemployment doesn't help us much when we're trying to find employees and retain them. But these positions would be more of a promotional opportunity to current employees, and we'd be looking at that instead of bringing people in from the outside.
You talk about the advantage of sweeping on demand, and I remember after 16 and 17 how poor the roads looked after hurricanes, and we're competing with all the other cities to get sweepers in. Everybody wants their roads back in shape as quickly as possible, and of course when you're competing for the same resources with your neighbors, it's not always a pleasant situation, but that's the reality of it, and we'd certainly be able to, when you talk about control, that's a big plus.
Absolutely. That, and right now with the leaves dropping on the parking lots out there, is always a major concern and something I always look at. And it's very difficult to hold the sweepers to get into those corners and things, whereas if we have 2 sweepers and 2 full-time employees, we'd equip them with backpacks and blowers. They'd be able to sweep that out while the other person is sweeping and picking it up. We're also going to change the type of sweeper. We're not going to use the traditional brush type. We're going to use the vacuum type, which will help bring up more of that debris off the roads.
What's the noise? Is the noise level about the same with that?
It will be a little bit of a higher pitch. Again, that's why we're going to stay out of residential neighborhoods until, that's why we were looking at, I talked to Ronnie Butchram and staff, and we were looking more at like the 4 a.m. to do the primary roads, the heavier traffic roads so that we're not in that heavy period, and then do the residentials after 7, 8 o'clock in the morning.
All this is keeping you from getting to your final slide, so go ahead.
So I put all the options together so that council can look at all of them all at one time. You can see that the awarding full with the same level of service, $199,533. You can award the full contract with the 1-year renewal and then minimize to the absolute minimum level of service. You can award the full contract and do just the public streets, no private streets. Or you can award the full contract for the 1 year with no renewals and maintain our current level of service and budget for the service in-house. So we're recommending, staff is recommending that council approves the bid award for 1 year and provide us direction to budget for purchasing sweepers, staffing up, and performing this task in-house.
Okay. Before we buffet you with questions, I'm going to go ahead and go to the public now because they've seen the presentation. And before we start talking about options, I want to make sure we've heard from them before we do that. So does anyone here care to speak to the item? Come on up, Robert.
Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive North, Port Orange. I have a question. If you're going to use one of the options 2 and 3, Ward 3, would these areas have to have a reduction in their stormwater fee? So you're really saving anything?
Nope.
No?
Now that is why I wanted to go to the public first before we got to speak to it. So that comes back to us. Anybody else here to care to speak to the item? Okay, now it comes back to us. Questions or comments, council? Start with you, Scott.
No, good presentation, Lynn.
Thank you.
Thanks. It's one of the things where I think in the past I've always kind of wondered why we weren't already doing it in-house, just because it kind of is a hand-in-hand thing with a lot of what Public Works does by nature, and the responsiveness of, it's great to have things on a schedule planned out months, quarterly, annually, but as we all know, some of that's a little bit unrealistic because certain things happen and events happen and the needs change, and you need to be able to have that flexibility. I guess my hope would be that if we can do it roughly for the same cost or have a cost savings, and what my thing would be is to significantly see just an overall better end result.
Yep.
Right? I mean, I think that's the goal. I'd like to hear a little bit more offline with you about the different types of options on vehicles, because it just wasn't all that long. I saw a resident had posted something, an actual video of a street sweeper in our community, and it looked like the dirt was not really being collected, just more smeared around the road. And it was, and then when of course they left the area, you could see this trail of smeared brushed dirt that went around the road and then around a parked car that was in the road and so forth and so on. And so, I mean, if the end result can be better with different types of technology, that's definitely something I'd like to hear a little bit more about. But
And that's one of the reasons that we looked at the vacuum sweeper. It
Okay.
does provide you a better finished product.
yeah, that seems like that would be the better way to go. So, but-
We actually talked to Ormond
do it
Beach. They're
right.
changing their sweepers over.
Yeah, and then lastly, and you touched on it, would be, ultimately the overall finished product. One of the things I see with the parking lot stuff is that the vehicles come through the parking lots, but then a lot of the areas in the nooks and the crannies and the crevices and the areas between the stop bars and the curb and so forth like that, they just don't get addressed. And that's where I think that those, blowers, combination with the push billy goats and stuff like that, I think you would get a much better overall project, especially in our larger complex areas like City Center for sure.
Drew?
Well, looking at the bids, the other, weren't even close. They were so far, we got a slight reduction in our per mile sweep rate with USA at $27.74. The other one was $146.96 per sweep mile. And then there was 85. They're not even in the ballpark. So looking at it, why the recommend? I know you kind of feel you can bring it in house, but if we could lock them up to the that lower rate for 3 years, why wouldn't we consider doing that?
Well, we certainly could.
Okay.
But you're gonna get the same level of service that you have currently. And that's fine. They do a good job
Yeah.
for what we require them to do. But as Councilmember Stiltner said, there's some other areas
Yeah.
I think that we could improve upon and get some additional service. If we do it right now, special services to them is $125 an hour. So to sweep after we generally get 2 sweepers to go after the parade. So you're looking at travel time. You're
Couple
looking
hours.
at a considerable expense if you wanted to do anything at City Center after an event at City Center, after Family Days, or anything else that you wanted to clean up after a city event.
Okay.
So there's some expenses there
Yeah.
that would, I think, be cost prohibitive, in my opinion. I think we can definitely do this in-house.
Yeah, this is not something other cities
Yeah.
don't already do. It's not new to cities to sweep streets. We can do this.
Correct.
How are they, obviously we have somebody monitoring the performance or whatever. How are they responsive to complaints or problems? Do they resweep or do they just not, they're non-responsive, or are they good about following up on problems?
They are good.
Okay.
We have no complaints of USA Services.
Okay.
They have been a partner of Port Orange for many, many years.
Yeah.
They service many other communities in our area,
Okay.
which I believe is why they are relatively local in Volusia County, which is why their prices are lower than the competitors. Those
Oh, a
are,
lot
are
lower.
not those are not companies that
A
are
lot lower,
already
yeah.
established locally.
Okay. And I mean, it can open to anything, but I'm not really looking to reduce any levels of service in this. We got to keep doing, I think, what we're doing. It would be kind of a slap in the face to the others if we said, we're not doing your roads anymore. But they pay the same stormwater fee, they pay the same taxes.
Sure.
So,
Again, just wanted to provide you all the
Yeah.
information and give you all the options.
okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Chase?
Yeah, great presentation as always.
Thank you.
I value your experience and your expertise very, very much so. I'm typically a guy that I like to contract out as much as possible. I'm always of the belief that more often than not, the private sector is going to do things better and more cost efficient. However, in this scenario, I value your expertise in that. You believe that we can bring it in, cost saving, and do better, then I'll be all for that. Private roads, I'm not too thrilled that we do the private roads, but ultimately our responsibility is our stormwater, and if they're not keeping up to it, then the whole city's going to suffer with it. So I'm okay with the option one and keeping the level of service that we're doing. So thank you for that.
Marilyn?
Well, I like the idea in your initiative that we can save money. The question I would ask, or I guess my concern is, it's based on the assumption that everything's gonna go just as you said in terms of the lifespan of the, sweeper and that type of thing, and that you can find people that are willing to do the job. And certainly in this type market, and I know in some other places in public works you have difficulty finding people. So I would express that concern. The other thought I have, some of it is in response to Councilman Bastian's comment about level of service. He doesn't want to reduce it. I don't know what it means when we say that we sweep private roads. I mean, I know, what that tangibly means, but I don't know the impact on it and on us. And I don't know that we truly understand that and how that relates to, the wastewater that you've talked about. So I guess I would like a little more information. Historically, we've been doing it, but if homeowners associations are responsible for their wastewater discharge, if you will, or the debris in it, I don't know that I have a clear enough picture what it means when we say we need the same level of service.
So
can you
if I may, ultimately, even a private system will pop off to Rose Bay, Spruce Creek,
Okay.
one of the outstanding bodies that surround our city. So I think ultimately, if they don't maintain their level of maintenance on their private stormwater systems, we will see it eventually. So as far as forcing a private community to maintain their stormwater system, we're limited because it's not our permit, it's the Water Management District's permit. So it's a state permit that they have to maintain their stormwater systems. And their permit may or may not require them to do sweeping. Their permit may just say you have to maintain your stormwater pond and your stormwater piping. So it may or may not require that level. Our plan for maintaining our city permit is to include street sweeping to help reduce the amount of debris loading on the receiving waters. So we do that by sweeping the streets. And so if you look at the difference of doing private streets versus all streets, it's not a lot of cost savings to not do those private streets.
Okay, and I was looking for stormwater, that's the word I should
Sure.
be using, not wastewater. But I guess my question will be is, how do we know that what we're doing on those private streets, in effect, is doing something to that stormwater requirement of that particular HOA? Do we track that?
We do not. No, we do not track their stormwater systems.
So if
But
we
we
don't know
receive-
if what we know we're sweeping on the private road, but if we don't know if there's an impact, I guess that begs that's getting at my question. Should we be doing it? And it ties in with, we say, oh, we want the same level of service. Well, what is the true impact of what we're doing, particularly in areas that are non-public, that don't have curbs?
So let me chime in real quick to make a point. There are a lot of things this city does that they don't need to do. And if you recall at the beginning, the conversation was, this was in solid waste, to indicate to me that some council or some staff thought it was a cleanliness issue. And oh, by the way, the byproduct of having to maintain the permit is our streets look clean. And that goes for the private properties too. There's a lot of things we do for private HOAs that we are not required to do. And I think, the money thing, the $31,000, I think, give or take, is one thing, but by going in these private subdivisions and taking care of this problem, I think we're attacking the problem at the source before it becomes our problem somewhere down the line, either in our stormwater system once it does become public, or later on when we have to go in because they're not keeping up their level of service. We have private subdivisions right now that have tremendous drainage problems that we're all aware of, and we're trying to help them just get their drainage right, not even to mention the street sweeping piece of it. So we'd have to go in and mitigate, I think, anyhow. So I'm not promoting the private. I whispered to you, I'm not, I don't feel it necessary to do private. But I think environmentally it might be the smartest thing to do for our city to make sure that we're protecting Spruce Creek, Rose Bay, and everything down the line in the long run.
Well, I guess that would be my
Couldn't have said
bottom
it
line.
better.
At the end of the day, I
That's
want
the
to make
impact,
sure
yeah.
we're protecting our waterways.
Sure.
But if, the question for me is, are we really with the private HOAs? And if, as you suggest it is, then I might say all those HOAs we're not doing it for. And if we're not sure how well they're doing it, should we consider
So-
doing something there? That takes us a little further someplace
Sure.
else, but.
So currently, we are doing all the private roads. We are sweeping every road in the
Ah.
city. We even go into Pickwick, we go into
That's where I'm-
Colony.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
How many
go into
private-
every street in the city.
How many private roads is there? Do you have a number off?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
On my presentation, I give you the number of miles.
Well, where
Few
where I'll leave it. I'm in favor of the contract. I think I would, just to hedge the bet, if you will, suggest a 1 year plus the 2 possible 1 year extensions, because who knows, I'm sure you're looking ahead to fiscal year 21 budget, but something may occur in the next couple of months where you say, gee, maybe we don't want it started in October, we'd like to kick it out another year. So
Okay.
I think that gives us the leeway. And then the final thing I would say, you are so thorough in terms of leading Public Works and thinking about alternatives. You know, this larger question of how can we get the HOAs that are now responsible for themselves, or even those where we're now sweeping, how can we begin to measure that and know that we're having a positive impact? I'll leave that to you to wrestle with,
Sure,
but
sure,
I'm
and
sure
I-
that's something you can look at.
I have considered that, and it's hard to do it with a private contractor, because I can't say, only do this neighborhood and let me measure the tons
Right.
of debris.
Right.
Whereas if we're doing it in-house, I'd be able to do that.
Okay.
I would know how many tons of debris we take out of a neighborhood.
For my part, I think the point Robert made was spot on. It's like, if I'm in a private neighborhood and I'm getting the service now, and that service goes away, and my stormwater bill doesn't get reduced, so I'm not getting a service I got that I'm paying for my neighbor to get, who lives somewhere else, and then my HOA comes back to me and says, hey, oh, by the way, I need to raise your fees to cover a service, that is not going to be implemented with any consistency, because they'll all be doing their own thing or nothing at all. Meanwhile, we have this system in place that we're already doing now, which we can continue to do with some slight savings. You know, at the very least, I have no problem with continuing as we are, at least for 1 year, maintaining the current service level. I just think that there's a fairness issue. Certainly, you
Well-
can measure the benefits or not, but I think there's a fairness issue that we have to measure as well.
I didn't use an ambulance at all last year, so there's a lot of items like that. If you
And be
just
glad you
because you
didn't.
don't use it doesn't mean you don't pay. The stormwater assessment is to keep our city stormwater. If you're driving down, Dunlawton and Spruce Creek doesn't flood anymore. That's what that stormwater money's for, things of that nature. So this is just one piece of it, and for me, living in a private HOA, whether I have to pay or not, I feel that that's my duty to keep our outstanding waterways clean, and it's kind of our fee for that. So we have some beautiful waterways because we're charging that fee. So.
Well, I think the first question is, because this will determine whether we even examine option 2 or 3 or not, is do we want to maintain the current service level as is before, or do we want to look at alternatives?
Maintain.
Maintain. Scott? Chase?
Maintain.
Okay, so that eliminates 2 and 3. So the question is, we award the contract for a year with renewal options, looking forward to bringing the service in-house, or do we just simply award the contract as is? What do y'all think?
Mayor, I think all your options are open. If you do the contract with 2 renewals and have us put it in the budget as a conversation piece, because when we get down to the budget, you're going to start crunching numbers, and
Approving the contract, it doesn't preclude us from looking at other options. Because they're.
No, we just want to lean forward, get consensus that we can lean forward on this in-house thing. So October 1st, she can start buying stuff, subject to budget approval.
Well, and here's the other thing I appreciate is the fact that we've had the opportunity to see this and have this information, and we're able to chew on it a little bit.
Not
so that when we get to
mid-September?
budget time, it's not the first time we see it. So with that, we have a motion on the floor for approval of the contract for 1 year with 2 additional years of renewals. Any comments or questions, council? There being none, call the question.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. We have a contract. City Attorney.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Thank you.
Good job.
City Manager.
Mayor, I have a few items. First of all, on the agenda is the city manager's evaluation.
Mhm.
Robin threw it on there. I said, yeah, it's February, let's do it. But then it occurred to me, because I love them, then it occurred to me that when we moved to Workday, we moved staff from you'll get evaluated on your anniversary to everybody's going to get evaluated in April. April will be the big staff push for evaluations. In order to remain consistent with the rest of the city, and there's no reason, unless you say there's a reason, to evaluate me in February. I would like to align my evaluation with the rest of staff's. That does a little bit of good stuff through Workday, through the evaluation process. I also will pass to you, if you approve of that, a sample evaluation form that the rest of the staff is using. And if you are happy with that, you will use that. If you're not, then I'll show you the other 2 we've used since I've come aboard, and you can pick one of those 2 or pick one of your own. I will say that some of you have used your own form of evaluations in the past as well. So if I can get some consensus that April's okay, I'll move forward. If you'd like to start the process in February, I will transmit my brag sheet to you tomorrow.
Jake,
Sure.
contractually, is it February now?
Yes.
So.
Contractually, it's February, yeah.
Okay, so we can do an addendum if that's
Yeah.
council's prerogative.
Yeah.
Any problem?
No problem.
Any problem with changing it from
I could change
I'm,
it.
I'm okay with April.
April?
You guys want to do us both in the same?
Yeah,
1 second.
yeah.
I was just inquiring, if we're gonna do this and we wanna try to get that consistency, we've got one on this end too that we may wanna, consider doing in April as well.
Whatever's his pleasure.
Well, he had a chance to ask that during city attorney
He's the one
comments,
that
but he
brought-
blew it.
I know, but did he happen to bring
He
up the whole
hasn't-
contractual thing and?
He doesn't work for staff, so
Yeah.
he's on his own over there. in the
Let's come
corner.
back to that one. Let's
I'm
solve
fine.
this question
Yep.
first. Fine with April? 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 Okay. April is fine.
Okay, I'll do that, and I will transmit the.
We'll come back to Matt after you're done with the rest of
I'll
your
give you
stuff.
what the current form looks like. So in April, you'll either accept that or we'll come up with something in the meantime. We talked about Jim Reardon being reappointed to the Fire Pension Board. I think the Police Pension Board has Brian Cobb, another financial advisor, and the General Employee Pension Board is in need of a new member. So I put that out to the public and council. I'm on the General Employee Pension Board, so I want what everybody else has. It's only fair.
I actually asked the Chamber of Commerce to see if they could find
Good.
somebody with that kind of
Yeah,
expertise.
that would be nice to have a board. Dr. Neal shows up and obviously is good at financial information, but it would be nice to have that civilian, however we are looking. I'd like to go over quickly the workshop schedule. On February 25th, we have an executive session. That's to start things off for the contract negotiations. I would like to propose a time of 5 o'clock. I know that's pushing it for some, but if you all can make it at 5 o'clock, I'd like to make it 5 o'clock. If you can't, please propose a time.
February, next Tuesday?
February 25th, yes.
Can we,
Workshop here at 5.
can we push another 10, 15 minutes? I mean, I can make 5.
5:15?
If we could do 5:15, that would be.
5:15.
5:15.
5:15, going once, going twice.
5:15,
February
that works.
25th,
Okay?
please speak.
And that'll be
Yes.
That'll be in the city manager's
Shade.
conference room.
Okay.
Shade.
5:15.
March 24th will be a basic budget and visioning session. What are your priorities? We have the city priorities. We'll take a look at those. Make sure they're all in the right order where you want them. Add, subtract, and move forward so the staff can start working on the budget. Go from there on the budget. Please give me your inputs if you want something particular. I have talked to Council Member Ford about some things she wants to see in this year's first visioning, so I'll add those.
What time's workshop? 6 o'clock?
24th, 6 o'clock works for me.
The reason I ask is Fire Pension Board determined they needed a special meeting and they've set one for 4:30 on that day. So I think we'll be done by 6.
6 o'clock it
But
is, March
5:30 we
24th.
wouldn't be.
Okay, March 24th, 6 p.m.
Okay?
March 24th,
6 p.m. it is.
March 31st
Parks
is
and
a,
Rec.
March 31st is the combined joint with Parks and Rec, 5:30 at the Annex. 5:30 at the Annex. Lakeside is going to be torn apart and it's echoey. This place doesn't hold 2 combined boards, so we'll go to the Annex.
What time is that at?
5:30. March 31st, 5:30. Annex. Robin will put this information out via email ahead of time and the day of.
Okay. That'll be a good reminder.
What else you got?
It's enough.
I agree. That does bring us back to the question, council, do you want to do city attorney evaluation in April as well?
Well, here's my question. Given that you've only been with us for, well, it'd be 4 months, are we obligated to do anything so quickly, or we just lag it and make?
You went 15 or 18 months with me the first year or two.
When the mayor and I talked, we were trying to kind of give you guys a break so you weren't knocking them both out at the same time. So I think the contract provides for like June, July. I'd have to look at that.
That sounds right.
We can leave that there unless you think it's easier to just go ahead and knock those out at the same
And
time.
I think the other thing we talked about is we wanted to make sure you actually had enough time on the ground, so we'd have something to evaluate.
Yeah, because there's 6 months at that point.
Are you good with leaving it as such? And if so, council fine with that? Leaving it alone?
I'd leave this one till June and maybe next year move to April.
Okay, we can consider it actually.
I think that's a fantastic plan. Council committee reports, First Step Shelter.
Nothing really to update other than I've touched base with Robin to get on the agenda for Victoria Fallberg, or Dr. Fallberg, our executive director, to come here and address the council, answer questions, give a more update as she's a day-to-day leader on that.
Very good.
And you had said she wants to see me too. Am I supposed to arrange that, or was she going to call? Do you know?
Say again.
But you said she wanted to have a meeting with me. Am I supposed to call her and arrange that?
I'll have her reach out.
That's fine. It can be
Unless
that
you-
same
unless
day
you-
if she wants.
That'd be fine. Whatever's good for you.
All right.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Fort Orange South Daytona Chamber, next Thursday, the 27th, at the Riverside Pavilion from 4 to 7, is the Small Business Expo. It'd be a good chance to show up and meet and support some of our small businesses throughout Port Orange and South Daytona area that will be there from 4 to 7 next Thursday. With that, tomorrow at noon is the State of the City. I think most of us will be there. We have a video recording already made for a portion of it. The second portion of it will be recorded for playback, so that we'll have that on the website as soon as possible, so that people who are, the 100 or so people tomorrow won't be the only ones that have it available to them. So looking forward to the State of the City, and looking forward to seeing you all next week. If no other business comes for us this evening, have a good night.